Tonight, I want to take on a privileged brigade that has lived far too long in the comfort of claiming victimhood on behalf of ordinary Muslims, my friends. A brigade that sits in glossy studios and plush drawing rooms and has carved out a political and social identity by projecting Indian Muslims as permanently wounded and eternally unhappy. It is time to call out and shame this elite ecosystem of ivory tower Islamists for one simple reason. They fear nothing more than a happy Indian Muslim. I, of course, am talking about the opinions that have been dropped by prominent persons like Iltija Mufti in the wake of the Delhi blast. A confident Indian Muslim citizen, a Muslim who is studying, working, prospering, hustling, dreaming and building a life without crying persecution at every traffic light, is the biggest threat to Iltija Mufti and her ilk. Because a happy Muslim renders them jobless. And the latest face of this brigade, like I said, is Mehbooba Mufti's daughter Iltija, a dynast raised in privilege, armed with pedigree and utterly dependent on a carefully curated narrative of grievance just to stay relevant. Take a look at her social media posts today, my friends. What she has done is an insult to every ordinary Muslim citizen who wakes up every morning trying to build a better life in India like every other citizen. Instead of confronting the reality of radicalisation that has been uncovered by the Delhi blast and the Jaish module, that Islamist groups like Jaish are ruthless recruiters, that their networks have penetrated institutions that should have been immune, Iltija Mufti has chosen to shamelessly blame phantom Islamophobia and widespread persecution. She has tried to peddle a fantasy of a persecution narrative. She has attempted to portray terror radicalization as a reaction to some rampant and overwhelming harassment. She has done this with the confidence of someone who has never been questioned, never been challenged, never been held accountable for the dangerous rhetoric she has inherited like a family business. Let us talk about these doctors for a moment. These are not marginalized youth. These are not men or women without opportunity. These are young professionals with some of the best education this country has to offer. They studied in respected colleges, they wore lab coats, they held stethoscopes, their families were lifted into comfort because of their hard work, they were respected, they were trusted, they were examples of what mainstreaming was supposed to achieve. And yet they were radicalized, not because of Islamophobia or persecution. They had every opportunity, not because of any harassment, but because the poison of Islamist terror ideology reached them and convinced them that their country, the one that educated them, the country that gave them opportunity, the country that trusted them and acknowledged their hard work, was the enemy. To take this poisonous radicalization and blame it on Islamophobia is to spit on the truth. And that is what Iltija Mufti has done. It is to spit on every Muslim doctor, engineer, entrepreneur, student and worker who is doing everything possible to contribute to this country like every other citizen. It is to say their success means nothing. Their progress means nothing. Their place in the mainstream means nothing, because for Iltija Mufti and her ilk, Muslims in upward motion are a threat. Muslims moving forward, challenging the business model of Iltija Mufti and her ilk. Muslims succeeding make it harder to pretend that India is a hostile wasteland for them. A happy Muslim, I repeat, is the worst nightmare for the Iltija Mufti brigade, because it cuts off the fuel that keeps their useless, degrading politics burning. Make no mistake, Iltija Mufti, a dynast and the daughter of Mehbooba Mufti, pretends to have had a life of suffering. She has not. And she is not merely wrong. She is relieved. Relieved that the men in this Jaish-e-Mohammed module turned out to be doctors. Relieved that this story gives her another opportunity to scream persecution. Relieved that she can now say mainstreaming Kashmiris failed, while carefully hiding that this failure has nothing to do with imagined Islamophobia and everything to do with radicalizers and handlers across the border. In her desperation to hold on to relevance, she has practically handed the Jaish-e-Mohammed a clean chit. She has absolved terror recruiters and handlers. She has blamed the victim and validated the perpetrators. She has shown the true nature of people like her, for whom Muslims are not citizens but commodities. Commodities to be projected, commodities to be shaped, to be misused when convenient and discarded when not. And of course, she is not alone. She draws strength from an entire brigade, an entire cabal, if you will, that has been doing this for so many years. A cabal of journalists and digital creators who write columns about Muslim despair while living far away from the mohallas they claim to represent. A cabal of elite activists who fly business class to conferences on persecution, a cabal of authors who present India as a dystopia abroad while enjoying every privilege it offers at home. These are the same voices who mocked triple talaq reform, who sneered when Muslim girls topped exams, who vanished when Muslim entrepreneurs succeeded, who fell silent when Kashmiri Muslims voted enthusiastically in decades. These are the same people who claimed Muslims would be thrown into detention camps, who swore citizenship would be taken away, who promised genocide and then moved on quietly when none of it happened. Iltija, Mufti and her ilk. Their hypocrisy is not occasional, it is structural, it is rehearsed, it is professional, and it survives on the lie that Indian Muslims are doomed to be miserable. So here is my message tonight. The biggest threat to this cabal, this brigade, this absolutely shameful ecosystem is not the government, not the law, not even the media, forget the media, not the courts also. The biggest threat to them is the Muslim who is living his or her life with joy, confidence and dignity. The Muslim who refuses to be a pawn. The Muslim who studies, works, earns, laughs, prays and thrives without waiting for the world to pity him or her. And that is why the Iltija Muftis are terrified, because the day the narrative that India's Muslims are victims stop finding buyers is the day this conniving, malicious sisterhood becomes irrelevant, and irrelevant is the one thing they cannot afford to be.